I want to talk to you about NordVPN. Public Wi-Fi is notorious for being a hotbed for hackers to steal data. By using NordVPN on my phone, protects me from hackers and gives me peace of mind while traveling. I don't have to sacrifice internet speed for better security. With NordVPN, my internet traffic is routed through a secure encrypted tunnel, which protects my data and privacy. I can also have NordVPN for up to 6 devices: laptop, phone, smart TV, iPad, and even your router. So all my devices are protected. There's a 30-day money-back guarantee if NordVPN is not for you, so there's no risk. Go to nordvpn.com/Donny. That's NORDVPN.com/Donny, or use code Donny to get up to 70% off your NordVPN plan, plus 1 additional month for free. It's also risk-free with Nord's 30-day money-back guarantee.
Part of the big lie is that everything that we do in reporting is not true, when in fact, it's the big lie of Trump that is what good reporting is about, which is the best obtainable version of the truth. I would say that the reporting on Donald Trump by the White House press corps, by 8, 9, 10 news organizations, is probably the greatest reporting on a president of the United States by the White House press corps in my lifetime.
Welcome to On Brand with Donny Deutsch. I am Donny Deutsch, and of course, this is the podcast dedicated to the premise that everything and everybody is a brand. Every product, every company, every athlete, every politician, we're all brands. If you've got a Facebook or an Instagram page, you're a brand because you're putting out there a set of values and what you stand for and what you believe in, and that's what makes what a brand. That's what brands are. So we do 2 things on the show. We do a big interview with an iconic brand about their own personal brand, and today we have Carl Bernstein. Famous Watergate journalist, Woodward and Bernstein, responsible for taking down Richard Nixon. He's got a new book out about his early years. It's fantastic. This is one of the smartest journalists, one of the most famous, if not the most famous journalist of all time. And we're going to talk politics and a lot of other stuff with Mr. Bernstein. But first, our brands of the week. These are the brands that are shaping what's going on, the zeitgeist, who's up, who's down. We kind of give a week in review through the eyes of which brands are going in which direction. So let's get right to it. Joe Biden, got to say brand down. It's just his approval ratings are just really not good. The interesting thing is Fox had him at the best approval rating at 47%, but NBC News has 43 approve, 54 disapprove. Gallup has 40 approve, 56 disapprove. AP has Biden approve, 43 disapprove. And here's the thing that, you got to brand down. Out of 10 presidents, he is 9th after his first year. The only guy who's done worse is Trump. Bush was at 80. Bush 43 was at 82%. That was right after, obviously, 9/11. Bush 41 was at 80%. JFK 79%. I mean, those numbers will never happen again. Those approve for anybody. Nixon was at 63. Clinton was at 60. Carter was at 52%. Obama at 48, Reagan at 47, Biden was 43, and Trump was 39. So not good news, more kind of sobering news from an AP poll. When asked if people would like to see Biden run for re-election, just 28% said yes, 70% said no. Political morning consult poll for 68% of voters say the country is on the wrong track. And this is the final kind of thing, a warning sign for the White House. 49% of voters disagreed with the statement that President Biden is mentally fit. So he's got some image problems, some branding problems. I've talked a lot that he's just not looking presidential. Not presidential. He's not looking strong and firm and in charge. I said that on my Instagram. I got a lot of comments on that. But it's still year 1, a long way to go, and we'll see. Brand up for Governor Ron DeSantis. You never heard me say that about this guy, because he says it's too much to ask. He's not backing Trump for 20. He's the only one, because he's going to probably run against him, is refusing to bend the knee to Donald Trump. He says backing him in the 2024 election is too much to ask. He was once a loyal member of Trump's kind of, posse. Trump, already feeling threatened by him, has come up with a nickname, supposedly Dull DeSantis. It's just still amazing that this guy does nicknames. It's incredible. This is a former president and maybe, unfortunately, a future president again. But brand up, because at least DeSantis is not cowering to Trump like the other Republicans. Another one you'd never hear me say also, brand up for Ann Coulter. Ann Coulter, the right-wing kind of zealot. She's predicting the end of Donald Trump, saying the former president is done. Trump is done. Coulter, a one-time Trump booster, said, you guys should stop obsessing over him. So very interesting that, certain people are coming forward, and Ann Coulter, who was always a Trumper, seems to think he's done. And a brand up for Republicans and another brand down for Trump. And this is an interesting poll. That in January, that 56% of GOP voters said that they consider themselves more Republicans, while 36% said they identify themselves as Trump supporters. That would have been very different a couple of years ago. So now Republicans are finding that their main allegiance is to being Republicans by a lot, by 20%, versus by 20 percentage points versus over Trump. And that's a big change. So there's cracks in that Trump controlling the Republican Party. Brand down for Rudy Giuliani. He's revealed to be the mastermind by the scheme to install all the bogus Trump electors. Led by Giuliani, they coordinated a failed scheme to install partisan and illegitimate electors in 7 different states that Trump lost in the 2020 election. So he was the mastermind behind trying to get in there, Trumpians, to overturn the election. Giuliani is probably going to end up in jail, so that's going to be fun. Over 3,000 of Giuliani's communications have been released to prosecutors following FBI seizures, so there should be some interesting stuff in there. Brand up to Senate candidate Gary Chambers. He's got a pot-smoking ad campaign in his Senate race, and it went viral. On Tuesday, Chambers released a now-viral campaign video. In it, the candidate lights a blunt while advocating for the legalization of marijuana. He's a longtime community activist from Baton Rouge. He's running against U.S. Senator John Kennedy. He strikes a serious tone in the first campaign ad, wearing a suit and tie. He sits in an armchair in the middle of the field and rattles off statistics about arrests for marijuana possession in the U.S. and money spent putting people behind bars for these charges. He says every 30 seconds someone is arrested for the possession of marijuana. Black people are 4 times as likely to be arrested for marijuana laws. So I salute the courage. I don't know if it's the right winning formula, but there you go, Gary Chambers. Tucker Carlson, brand down. He almost gets a brand every week, comparing vaccine mandates to Nazi experiments. And he's not the first guy to do this. He goes, amazing. He compared President Joe Biden's vaccine mandate to Nazi experiments on concentration camp captives and familiar human experiments undertaken by the Imperial Japanese military on Friday. Speaking on his show, he said, after watching what the Imperial Japanese Army and the Nazis did in the medical experiments, I thought that American physicians agreed that compulsory medical care was unethical. It was immoral and could ever be imposed on anyone. When did we forget that? Fuck you, Tucker Carlson. Having people get safe mandated vaccines, where people have always gotten vaccines in this country, to experiments on Jews by the Nazis. A brand down for Wharton students. Wharton, a business school at the University of Pennsylvania. What do you say? Okay, I'm an alumni of Wharton, my school that I went to. This just shows how we're kind of the very wealthy and the very privileged are living in a bubble. The Wharton School of the University of Pennsylvania went viral this week when a professor tweeted about how much her students think the average American earns. When I asked Wharton students what they thought the average American worker earns per year, and 25% thought it was over 6 figures. So these Wharton students, nobody said they've got street smarts, think 1 in 4 Americans make over 6 figures. One of them thought it was $800K. Really not sure to make of this. This has been tweeted a lot, and maybe Wharton students have got to learn a little bit more about the real world. Brand up for the 10 richest men in the world. They saw their wealth double during COVID pandemic. Elon Musk saw his wealth increase tenfold to $294 billion in the first 20 months of the pandemic. Jeff Bezos' net wealth rose 67% to $203 billion. Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg wealth doubled to $118 billion. And Bill Gates increased only by 31% to $137 billion. That's a lot of money. So there you go. The rich are getting richer, and the Wharton guys are clueless about what's going on in the rest of the world. Netflix, brand down, big brand down. Stock has tumbled 41%, all-time high in just last 2 months. It's gaining subscribers at a slow pace. The company stock peaked at 700. It's down around 400. Looks like they're hitting what maturity, said one media analyst. And it just seems if they've gotten, in particularly in the U.S., the subscribers they're going to get. Like, if you were going to get Netflix, you got it already. And I mean, I'm oversimplifying, but they're really struggling. As is Peloton, really big brand down also. They're spinning out of control. The combination of supply chain things, and also there was some accidents. Their stock is way, 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 way down. They're taking their prices down. They're trying to do everything they can. But Peloton, once a golden child, really struggling as a brand. New York online betting, it's new, it's up, it's brand up for that. New Yorkers bet $600 million in mobile sports gambling in January, and just in the launch. I've said this on the show. I don't know if obviously it's good for business and it's good to make money, but I don't know, is making sports gambling so available and so accessible, is that a good thing for our culture? I don't know. Aaron Rodgers brand down. They lost, obviously, the Packers. Not that it was all his fault, but he did not have a strong game. And his brand is just tattered. He's just come across as a sullen guy. Of course, the not necessarily lying, but misleading about being vaccinated. He said he was immunized. Very sullen with the press. And doesn't see, obviously they won one Super Bowl, but doesn't seem to come up in the big games, coming after a week after watching the young guns, Patrick Mahomes and some of these other guys just sling it, if you will. Joe Burrow, of course, Josh Allen, and Aaron Rodgers looks like his time may have come. Tom Brady, brand up for Tom Brady. He once again almost brought them back, the Bucs back. He didn't. The defense at the end let Matthew Stafford have a big play, but it was just incredible watching Brady, and just they were down 20-3. And he just comes back with 2 touchdowns late in the game. And he's talking about retirement. I think he plays one more year, but, there's never been a better, other than LeBron James, I don't think there's ever been a better spokesperson for a sport. You can't say enough about this guy. Brand up for State Farm. I guess a brand up, for State Farm. They're picking TikTok. Oh, it's really a brand up for TikTok, I would say, versus State Farm. State Farm Insurance is picking TikTok over TV in the Super Bowl ads. Last year, they did a big splurge. They had Drake and Paul Rudd in ads. This year, they're doing the Team State Farm TikTok Challenge. I think you're going to see more of that. More and more advertisers going, what can we, not necessarily just putting their money purely, but doing a promotion during the game using the social media, because people now watch game and they're on social media the whole time. So I think a lot more advertisers are going to go see that. Brand up to robot umpires. They're getting closer to the plate. The automatic ball strike system, ABS, the tech powering that's known as robo-umps, is inching closer to the big leagues. That basically you're going to have kind of a robot behind the plate calling balls and strikes. And, so there's never a miss, if you will. I don't know. I don't think that's progress. I want to see the umpires there. Brand up to Pete Davidson and Colin Jost, of course, 2 of the stars of Saturday Night Live. They bought an uncommissioned Staten Island ferry. And there are those huge ferries that go back and forth between Staten Island and Manhattan. They're these big yellow ones, and one of them was out of commission. So those 2 guys bought it for a couple $100,000. They're going to turn it into an event space, a comedy club. I think that's great. Brand up for oldies music. Nearly a third of iTunes top 100 taken by oldies. And whether it's Ronnie Spector singing Be My Baby or Creedence Clearwater, have you ever seen The Rain at number 17? The Doors, Nickelback, Edison Lighthouse single, Love Grows, Rose, that's really interesting that when you think about it on iTunes, basically a third of them are tunes that I like from my era. Brand down for Mission Impossible. Mission Impossible 7 has been delayed by the 4th time because of COVID, but I guess you can't say brand down for anything that's having its 7th sequel, or like 6th sequel if it's 7th. So there they go. Brand, I'm not sure for M&Ms. Their candy mascots got a makeover with less sex appeal and more Gen Z anxiety. The 2 female characters, formerly known as Ms. Green and Ms. Brown, they're dropping the title to de-emphasize gender, and they're basically going to make them a little less sexy, if you will. I don't know how a piece of candy is sexy, but they once modeled the Sports Illustrated swimsuit shoes. They wear high heels and go-go boots and strappy heels. Now they're going to be in cool layback sneakers. And Brown, the newest addition to the cast, who's been portrayed as a brainy, powerful CEO type, is getting lower pumps because people in the suites are not wearing stilettos. I don't know. I think sometimes we can go what do we call it? The political correct police can go a little too far. I don't think any watching an M&M wearing high heels versus flats is going to change anybody's feeling about women or sexism or gender, or call me old-fashioned. I don't know. I'd love to hear from anybody on that one, because that just kind of threw me a little bit. And finally, brand up for yaks, the animal. Yes, yaks. Most of them live in Tibet, but there's a growing number of yaks that call the United States home. This week, they're strutting their stuff at the National Western Show in Denver. The yak portion of the livestock show culminates with yaks competing in an obstacle course. And if you've never seen yaks compete in an obstacle course, I guess you want to go out to Denver. And those are our brands of the week. Now let's get to our interview with Carl Bernstein. He is one of the most fascinating men of our time. Of course, was responsible for all taking down Richard Nixon Watergate with his partner Bob Woodward. He's written some of the best books on journalism. You'll see he's got a lot to say about the state of politics today and talk about his new book. So here's my interview with Carl Bernstein. Okay, I want to talk to you about Huel. That's Huel. Look, as soon as I wake up, I'm on the go. Next thing I know, it's lunchtime and I haven't eaten anything. No wonder I'm hungry, but what are my options? Running through a drive-thru, grabbing something I know that's not good for me? No thanks, that's why I have Huel. Huel is human fuel. Provides all the carbs, protein, fats, fiber, and 27 essential vitamins and minerals you need, and everything is plant-based. You got a wide range of convenient on-the-go options for someone who wants to eat healthy, but doesn't have a ton of time like me. Huel powder comes in classic flavors like vanilla, chocolate, salted caramel, and more. Just mix it with water and the free shaker. You get your first order and you're good to go. There's also a premix, ready-to-drink option to help you save even more time. Now, Huel's new hot and savory meals are also fantastic. You've got mac and cheese, Mexican grill, Thai green curry, and a few others you have to try, and they take less than 5 minutes to make. I'm telling you, the mac and cheese, you got to try it. Huel's really good stuff. This is real good energy stuff. It's satisfying. It's really, really good. Huel is proof that fast food can be good food. I love it, and you will too. And right now, you can get free shipping on your first order, plus a shaker and free t-shirt. Free t-shirt. Go to Huel.com/Donny. That's Huel, Huel.com/Donny to get free shipping on your first order, plus a shaker and a t-shirt. Huel.com/Donny. Huel, I'm telling you, it's good stuff, guys. I want to talk about Mizzen+Main, and I'm a kind of a style guy, and when it comes to dress shirts and all kinds of shirts, I always have issues with the way they fit, and I tried this Mizzen+Main, and I love their stuff. This stuff is so comfortable, it's so cool. Combines the comfort and flexibility of your favorite athletic wear with the fit and style of a custom dress shirt. Lightweight, breathable, and moisture-wicking. Mizzen+Main's clothing will have you looking great. So it brings both the worlds together of like an athletic shirt and a dress shirt. You got to try it. Skip the dry cleaner. Plus, the dress shirts are machine washable, so you can skip those trips to the dry cleaner. On a hot day in D.C., Mizzen+Main's founder saw a guy running up the hill in a sweat-soaked, wrinkled dress shirt and thought, had to be a better way. Since then, they've set out to make comfortable and looking great shirts that are the new normal. They may have gotten famous for their dress shirts, but Mizzen+Main now makes incredibly comfortable flannels, no-tuck shirts, performance polos, chinos, and so much more. They're amazing. There are 30,000 five-star reviews. You know they make a good product. I tried them. They were sent to me. I think they're really, really good. They're really comfortable. I love the fit. With work from wherever being the new normal, I love that Mizzen+Main fits with whatever my work situation is. I just kind of, whatever it is, put on my next dress shirt, comes up in my rotation until I found Mizzen+Main. Now that's where I go to. Whether you're working from the golf course or taking conference calls in the courtyard, you've got good news. Right now, if you go to Mizzen+Main.com and use promo code Donny, you'll receive $35 off on any regular price order of $125 or more. That's $35 off when you go to MizzenMain.com and use your promo code Donny. Mizzen+Main, I'm telling you guys, if you're into shirts that look cool and are comfortable and make life easy, Mizzen+Main is your shirt and your maker of clothing for you. I am thrilled at today's guest. He is a legend. I don't use that term a lot. This is probably my 40th or 50th podcast. I don't think I've used the word legend, so I saved it for Carl Bernstein. Carl has got a major new bestseller in its first week. It's already number 8 on the New York Times bestseller list. Chasing History, A Kid in the Newsroom. And it is, of course, everybody knows Carl Bernstein and his history, and obviously has changed the course of history with Bob Woodward, with Watergate. He's written some other amazing books, A Woman in Charge, The Life of Hillary Rodham Clinton, Loyalty, His Son's Memoir, His Holiness John Paul II and the History of Our Time, The Final Days, of course, All the President's Men. He is one of the, if not most famous journalists, if not famous journalist of all time. He's a commentator. He's a provocateur. He's a bon vivant. He's been played by Dustin Hoffman and Jack Nicholson in 2 separate movies. I don't think anybody else in our time can say they've been played by 2 superstars in a movie. I want to talk to you about Heartburn a lot because that reminded me of my life a lot, but we'll get that to that later. But congratulations on the new book, my friend.
Thanks, Donny. It's good to be with you after all this time. Again.
Yeah. We used to get to see each other in person on Morning Joe, and something called Corona changed that a little bit,
So here we are, zooming.
Here we are zooming. And I want to just read a couple of blurbs from the book because it really sets up the book. And one is from Jill Abramson, of course, in the New York Times. His career spans the profession's best of times and the worst. Though the story he tells in Chasing History evokes only the happy days, Carl Bernstein's book, which is ultimately a eulogy for print newspapers, is a passionate reminder of exactly what is being lost. And one quote from you that really sets up the book, and you recall the first time walking into a newsroom, you said, people are shouting, typewriters clattered and clinged beneath my feet. I could feel the rumble of the presses. In my whole life, I had never heard such glorious chaos, a scene for purposeful commotion, as I now beheld in that newsroom. By the time I had walked from one end to the other, I knew I wanted to be a newspaper man. Take me through that first day. You walked into the Washington Star, the Evening Star, which is kind of really where this book takes place. Most of the essence of the book is your time there. Talk to me take me back there.
Well, let me first say a little bit about what this book, Chasing History, A Kid in the Newsroom, and the word kid is key to this, it really is. It's about this kid, me, who from the ages of 16 to 21, and we'll talk in a second about that first day when I was 16 years old, got the greatest seat in the country. I became a copy boy, then eventually became a reporter when I was 19, at what was really the greatest afternoon newspaper in America. And pretty much everything that I know about reporting, about journalism, I learned at the Washington Star in those 5 years. And my 5 years at the Star actually bracket the Civil War by 100 years later. So part of the book is also about my growing up in Jim Crow, Washington. I went to segregated public schools, legally segregated public schools in the capital of the United States. And so a running theme, the book is both about this kid with the greatest seat in the country at a time of immense change in the country during the era of civil rights, the beginning of the war at Vietnam and the anti-war movement. So this first day that I went to the Washington Star, I went there for an interview for a job as a copy boy. And at the time, I was about to flunk out of high school, actually. I sort of had 1 foot in the classroom, 1 foot in the juvenile court, one foot in the pool hall. And my father rightly feared for my future. And he knew somebody at the Star, which was then the town's known as the town's conservative paper, unlike the liberal Washington Post. And I had taken a journalism course in the 10th grade, and I'd also taken typing with the girls. Typing is very significant in this whole story.
Yes.
Typing is the key to my really moving up to being a reporter. But on that first day, I went for an interview, and I had on this new cream-colored suit that I had bought from No Label Louis downtown in Washington. And the meeting was with a member of the owning family of the Washington Star. He was the production manager. And he took a look at me and he said, "Boy, I thought that you were graduated from high school already." And because I was 5'3" and freckled. And I said, "No, sir, I'm going to graduate this year." He said, "Boy, when you graduate, why don't you come back here and ask for a job?" And I'd come into his office through a regular corridor, and then he escorted me out. But he escorted me out into the newsroom and the scene you just described.
Right.
And I was like a puppy on a leash, straining to take it all in as I beheld this magnificent scene that you've just read from in front of me. There were reporters yelling copy. It was like the most urgent errands in the nation that all these people were doing. And they were running up to the city desk and up to the national desk, and they were on deadline, and they were shouting at each other, and there were plumes of smoke because everybody in the newsroom smoked. And this production editor took me up the middle aisle of the newsroom with reporters' desks on either side. And then another copy boy came with a dolly filled with newspapers, and this guy pulled one out and handed it to me. And I could feel the rumbles of the press beneath me in the press room. And the newspaper was still warm from coming off the press.
Wow.
And as I looked at all this, and I could see the paper and what had been produced, and I could see it being produced for the next edition, because there are 5 editions a day of this great paper, I said to myself, I want to be a newspaper man. And that was it. And I knew from that day forward, that's what I wanted to do, even though the next day I came in and I sat outside this guy's office and said, hey, I know you say I can't work here. I really want to work here. And he said, can you type? And I said, yeah. He said, go take a typing test. And I'd taken typing with the girls, and I could type in high school in 10th grade.
90 words a minute, right?
90 words a minute. I took the typing pass. I was given an examination by the newspaper nurse, if you can imagine in those days. The newspapers, at least this one, were so paternalistic that they had a nurse's office.
It's amazing.
Then he called me the next day and he said, boy, I didn't know you could type like that. And I said, yeah, well, and he said, okay, you're hired, $29 a week. And that's how I got the greatest seat in the country. And for the next 5 years, I got to do absolutely everything that you can do as a copy boy, as a reporter, as a mid-level dictationist with a headset on, not quite like Donny's there in the picture. It was only on 1 ear. And I would take stories called in by the reporters in the field, including, as a matter of fact, the dictation from a great reporter, David Broder, the great political reporter who was in Dallas the day of the assassination. And he dictated to me, 2 priests walked out of Dallas Memorial Parkland Hospital at 1:10 p.m. today and announced, quote, the president is dead. So that'll give you some idea.
Yeah.
The book is not the old man looking back. It's written in the voice, the kind of wonder, this voice in wonder of this kid with this amazing seat.
It's an uplifting book, and it couldn't come at a better time because the contrasts are. We'll obviously talk about them, and you've written 1992 way ahead of your time in terms of where journalism was going, and not the death of journalism, but it's as a guy who comes from that era of exuberance and dedication to journalism and to truth and all the things we know. And as you live through today, and we're both well aware of the politics and the politics of social media and everything that's happening. I mean, what's your take on where we're going?
Well, I think we have to look at the larger culture, and often we look at journalism and we look at media and we look at politics in isolation from the culture itself. And I think what we really need to look at right now is, who are we as a people? What is our culture in this country? And a lot of that does have to do with Donald Trump. I think you've probably heard me, Donny, many times say on the air, we've been in a cold civil war in this country for a good 20, 25 years. Mm-hmm. Cultural civil war, not just political.
What is that? So what is that civil war about? If you can articulate it.
Well, let me tell you, I'll say it in a minute, but what's happened in the Trump years, the cold civil war got ignited. Yeah. It got ignited by Donald Trump. It got ignited by the first seditious president of the United States in our history, by someone willing to stage a coup to stay in office, by the big lie, by a serial liar as president of the United States, by a president of the United States with no regard for the Constitution, the history of the country, etc. He took it somewhere it had never been and ignited what had been this ongoing cold cultural civil war in this country. So I think that's the background we need to look at what's happening in journalism and reporting, because we're not believed if we report the best obtainable version of the truth by maybe 45, 50% of the people in the country, if we're to believe what the surveys show. And almost all of those people who support Donald Trump, the Republican Party has become the party of Donald Trump, not just in Washington, but the people who vote in this country. And they've embraced this cult of Donald Trump and its big lie. And part of the big lie is that everything that we do in reporting is not true, when in fact, it's the big lie of Trump that is what good reporting is about, which is the best obtainable version of the truth. I would say that the reporting on Donald Trump by the White House press corps, by 8, 9, 10 news organizations, is probably the greatest reporting on a president of the United States by the White House press corps in my lifetime. What do we know about Donald Trump, about his presidency? Almost everything we know is from that reporting from the White House and reporting about Trump by people who have written books, including my colleague Bob Woodward. But really, it's been reporters who have enabled us to know what this president is about and what his movement is about. So I think that's the background we need to look at our journalism today, because at the time of Watergate, for instance, and I come back to this phrase, the best obtainable version of the truth, is a phrase Woodward and I came to use during Watergate to describe what good reporting really is. And that goes back to this book and my time at the Washington Star, because there we had a phrase that was not the best obtainable version of the truth, but really the complexity of the truth is what we called it. And what this is all about is getting out of the office, not using Google as a reporting, it's a tool, Google. It's a tool, Wikipedia, but it doesn't get you out of the office to do what real reporting is. Perseverance, knocking on doors, seeing source after source after source. You see it in the movie of All the President's Men.
Sure.
You see it in this book, this kid learning about that. So there's a straight line in the book to All the President's Men, to what we did in Watergate. But here you see it happening at its most basic level. You knock on doors. You don't take no for an answer. You're a good listener if you're a good reporter. You respect the people that you're covering, regardless of what their political orientation is. You regard them as human beings. You listen to them. They'll try to tell you their truth. Much more often than not, their truth might not be the best obtainable version of the truth. Then you go to other sources. You start to triangulate the information, just like we did in Watergate. So that's what I learned. That's what we don't have enough of in our journalism.
Well, it's the opposite. It's the opposite today. You 50% of the people
willing to go outside the newsroom. We have become lazy, and that criticism of us, don't generalize too much, because we still have simultaneously all this great reporting going on, including investigative reporting all over the country by nonprofit news organizations, for instance. At the same time, this terrible laziness that the internet, among other things, has produced in newsrooms and by too many reporters.
I want to talk to you about Alto IRAs. Do you have an account with Coinbase? Are you thinking of opening one? Do you own any Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, or any other cryptocurrency? Cryptocurrency may represent the future of money. It's one of the most exciting investment opportunities to come around for some time. But what about taxes? When you do anything in life, there's one way to do it, and then maybe there's a smarter way to do it. You might already be investing in crypto, but you know you can trade Bitcoin, Ethereum, and over 80 other cryptocurrencies in a tax-advantaged IRA. With an Alto Crypto IRA, you can trade crypto like Bitcoin and avoid or defer taxes. It's a big deal. Get into investing in crypto and doing a tax-advantaged retirement account. Alto's Crypto IRA is the easy way to get crypto into an IRA. Get without the tax headaches, create an account in just a few minutes. Invest with as little as $10, no setup charge. Secure trading 24/7 through Alto's integration with Coinbase. 80 plus coins available, including Bitcoin, Ethereum, and Cardano. So listen to me. Ready to take your investments to the next level? Diversify like the pros and trade without tax headaches. Open an Alto Crypto IRA with as little as $10. Just go to altoira.com/brand. That's ALTOIRA.com/brand. Start investing in cryptocurrency today. Go to altoira.com/brand. So what do we do? You talked about, you used the word truth, and 50% of people today in the world get their news from Facebook, which we know there's no accountability there.
That really is the statistic.
That's the statistic. 50%, 1 out of 2 people get their news from Facebook now. So what does that mean for the future of truth? And we live through every day, everybody's different version of the truth. That you have 2/3 of Republicans who think that Joe Biden did not win the presidency, regardless of what facts they are being told, regardless of 60 appointed judges by Donald Trump saying that he won, by Department of Justice saying, well, it doesn't matter. So how do we protect the truth at this point?
Well, I want to go back to your question. What does it mean? And I have known for a long time that a huge percentage of our people all over the world, in fact, get their news through social media. But if that statistic is accurate, it's even worse than I had imagined, because, well, how does Facebook curate news? Through algorithm. What's the most important thing that a reporter or an editor does? He or she decides what is news, not an algorithm, a human person looking at what he or she has reported, or an editor on a desk saying, you don't have it yet, Bernstein, go back and see 3 more sources. You're not told that by Facebook. Facebook has no idea how the hell the story has been reported. We have no curatorial presence the way we did. Now, this is not about nostalgia. This is about a yearning for something we deserve to have in the present. Real reporting, which we have, but which gets out to the people, and the people that it serves are able enough, reasonable enough to understand they need to seek out not just information that suits their already held prejudices, political beliefs, ideologies, religious beliefs, and that is what has happened. It's so much. Let's look at our country. Every survey bears this. Probably a majority of people in this country are looking for information in news that suits what they already believe.
Yes, of course. Bespoke. Yeah.
To the best obtainable version of the truth. Compare that to the time of Watergate. Through the early stages of Watergate, when Bob Woodward and I were reporting these stories, most of the people did not believe our stories until, say, up to the point of that event known as the Saturday Night Massacre. Mm-hmm. But they were open to the truth. It might have come slowly, but Nixon left office. And when Nixon left office, largely because the Republican Party, the leadership of the Republican Party in the end, and I'll tell you a story about that, the leadership of the Republican Party in the end decided Richard Nixon was a criminal president of the United States and had to leave office. And the people of the country, in a consensus, had decided Richard Nixon was a criminal president, and they had heard his tape recordings and had to leave office. Donald Trump, we have heard and know everything there is to know practically in terms of his character, in terms of his willingness to undermine democracy itself, to stage a coup, to stay in office. We know all that. And at the same time, the Republican Party has gone along with it, and he has been acquitted twice rather than convicted, as Nixon would have been by the Senate of the United States in a Senate trial after impeachment. Trump was acquitted. So we have back to what I said about a different culture. And that culture, a good part of it, particularly the cult of Trump and those who have followed him, and in the Republican leadership who are so craven that even those who disdain, and that's many of them, and really are just disrespect Trump, the leadership of the Republican Party in private, in Washington, they're scared of him. They disdain him. They know he's lying. Mm-hmm. Look at that situation compared to what happened to Richard Nixon. Barry Goldwater, great conservative, nominee of his party in 1964, to be president of the United States. After the Nixon tapes, Nixon was refusing to leave office. He was going to be impeached by the full House. Goldwater led a group of Senate leading Republicans to the White House to meet with Nixon. Nixon thought he would be acquitted. like Donald Trump, by a trial in the Senate. And Nixon looked at Goldwater and said, Barry, how many votes would I have in a Senate trial? Fully expecting Goldwater to tell him, Mr. President, you'll win in a Senate trial and you'll still be in office, just like Donald Trump. Goldwater looked at Nixon and he said, Mr. President, right at this moment, you may have 4 to 6 votes, but you will never have mine. And at that moment, Richard Nixon knew he could not survive.
Yeah.
Decided he would have to resign. Compare that to today. Compare that
it's another universe. It's another universe. It's an absolute another universe. Explain, I've asked this of various guests. You talked about, obviously, a civil war, brewing for 25 years. Donald Trump, the second time around in this election, got 74 million Americans to vote for him. This is after, I always said on the first round, people go, okay, Hillary maybe wasn't a great candidate and people are going to take a flyer and maybe he's just saying these things to get elected. But then people saw 4 years of all the things that we've alluded to. Explain to me why Donald Trump? What is it? Because obviously he's a reflection. What is it in you've had a front row seat talk, going back to your book, going back to the Washington Evening Star. You've watched people, you've watched politicians, you've watched our country, you've seen it go through the depths and the greatness. So as best as Carl Bernstein can explain it, explain why just about half this country goes thumbs up to Donald Trump.
First of all, let me say, I can't answer that question with any kind of definitive answer. And it's indicative of the fact that one of the things we are not doing in journalism and in reporting, and haven't done even through the Trump years, is to report on the country itself and our people. We keep reporting on what's going on in Washington. We keep reporting what's going on in the institutional Republican Party, which we've done pretty well at. But in terms of going to the people of this country and knowing what's on their minds, the most complex reporting task you can imagine. And we can only get it at the surface, but I think we could get a good deal better at the surface and maybe a little subcutaneously getting in there. There's a great reporter named Haynes Johnson who gave me my first byline at the Washington Star when I was 18 years old. And I tell the story of that first byline in the book, and Haynes Johnson. Haynes Johnson went on to be one of the greatest reporters the Washington Post ever had. And he came to the Post around the same time I went to the Washington Post. And one of the things that he did at the Washington Post, he and David Broder, also at the Washington Star, the man I said a minute ago, whose dictation I took from Dallas, Broder came to the Post, and he and Haynes Johnson, every 2 years or 4 years in an election year, would go out and spend 2-3 months in the country trying to understand what was on the people's mind. And they were pretty successful at it. It was an amazing, different kind of reporting, taking what going on in Washington and seeing how people felt about it and trying to go deep through interviewing, through seeing local officials. If we went out and talked to mayors all over this country today, instead of talking to these yokels in the Congress of the United States,
Right.
if we went out and talked to every mayor in this country, because mayors, Republicans, Democrats, have their fingers on the pulse of their communities. If we did that, we'd have a better understanding of why all these people voted for Trump. We don't know. We haven't done enough. We have surveys, polls, and those polls are very interesting because in an election, a poll could be off by 5%, and it totally screws up any validity to the poll because 5% will swing any close election, particularly the presidency, if you have a 5% differential. Any candidate who wins by 5% for the presidency has got a landslide.
Yeah.
But in terms of basic attitudes, let's say the polls, these surveys are off by 5%. We do know some things. We know that 35% of the people who voted for Donald Trump, maybe a little higher, believe that Christianity is being taken away from them and for our nation. Now, what does that mean? What in the hell does that mean? It tells us something is really askew if 35% of the people of this country believe Christianity is being taken away from them. I mean, first of all, we have more Christian belief in this country than probably any time in our history. Mm-hmm. Look at the born again movement, et cetera, et cetera. All I'm suggesting is that we need to understand better why the Republican Party of today has gone along with Donald Trump, the seditious president, and why they have embraced beliefs that would tolerate sedition, that would tolerate in a party, the Republican Party, now is committed not to voting rights. And one of the things you see in this book, this kid, me, in 1965, I got to cover the Voting Rights Act of 1965 being passed. What did that Voting Rights Act do? It finally gave Black people in America a real chance to vote. It said you could not have poll taxes. You could not have impediments at the polls to keep Black people from voting. What do we have to, and that Voting Rights Act was passed because Republicans joined Democrats in 1965, and I was there to witness it. I tell the story in this book. Where is the Republican Party today? This week, trying to suppress voting rights and voting down the new Voting Rights Act of 2021. So what does that mean culturally? That we now have half of the people in this country have accepted the big lie that this was a fraudulent election that we just had, are willing to go along with suppressing the voting rights of Black Americans. What does that tell us about the country?
I think go ahead. I'm sorry.
So we need to start looking at the country, not just the politicians.
Yeah, I think it all comes under a banner of that, and this is why Donald Trump was so effective, and he uses an autocrat's playbook. He finds enough people unhappy with their own lot in life, and he creates another. And it's not your fault. It's the Black person's fault. It's the Jew's fault. It's the banker's fault. It is the autocrat playbook. And I think that this country, which will no longer be majority white by the year 2040, terrifies people. And I think that is what's underneath. I think race and this country no longer being a white country. And I think when you the statistic you put up about 35% they're taking my Christianity away, I think that's kind of a cover for they're taking my white away, or this country is getting less white. And I think that that's what Donald Trump seizes on. It's what is so frightening, and the alarm bells are not sounding loud enough, is how precarious our democracy is right now. Donald Trump, had he been a little more clever first time around, would have been able to have this coup. And right now, in local legislatures, in places, we are so on the precipice, and people just are not fucking getting it.
Well, I agree with your analysis, that the demographics and what people believe about the demographics and what that 50% who voted for Trump, many of them, most of them, a huge, overwhelming majority of them do believe some of the things you're talking about. But you're saying that the people of this country are not getting that information about the demographics. They are getting the information, but it goes back to a culture in which, and you're talking about undermining democracy. Yes, there is a willingness in this country by a huge number of people to undermine democracy, to undermine it in the mold of Donald Trump and what he advocates. There is perhaps half of the people in this country willing to undermine democracy, even if most of them know that what Trump is doing and what they are embracing undermines democracy. Yes, for some of the reasons you're talking about. It is back to what I'm saying about the culture of the United States has changed. We need to recognize it. We need to be reporting on that. But do not for a minute think that this is unreported. It is reported, but we need to be doing more. And the reporting is not having an effect.
Well, it can have an effect. When I'm holding up right now the smartphone, and as you said earlier, when people will get the news bespoke, you will only get the news the way you want it. And that is, we've democratized media so much that we've destroyed it. We've destroyed, straight journalism. And as the population continues.
Donny, the journalism is there. The reporting is there. What's not there is a receptivity to the best obtainable version of the truth. We have evolved a culture in which truth does not matter to perhaps a majority of the people of our country. That if the truth is contrary to what they believe or what they embrace, they're not going to accept it. And I'm not just talking about people who voted for Donald Trump. There are some people on the other side. There's nothing equal. There's no equivalency on this, I think, between right and left.
No.
I think, but whatever the case, there are plenty of people on both sides who are unopen to the best obtainable version of the truth.
So, Carl, as a guy who's been through a lot, how do you feel about the future? How do you, when we understand the certain things that we're talking about today, and we haven't revealed anything major that is not talked about all the time, what does this bode for 2024 and 2028 and the future of our democracy?
Well, I think the future of our democracy and the present of our democracy is in terrible peril. To use the title of Bob Woodward's last book, democracy is in peril. We are in a crisis. We are past the point of constitutional crisis because the Constitution is not working to, for instance, enable us to solve our problems. Donald Trump was able to escape constitutional accountability. So the Constitution, in many regards, we're a young country. Nothing like the old countries of Europe in terms of our history. But we're the oldest democracy in the world.
Yes, we are.
And that democracy is failing. So let's look at aspects of the failure. You and I grew up in the post-war era in the greatest meritocracy in the history of the earth. That meritocracy doesn't exist anymore. It's one reason people are angry. You and I had, look at this kid, look at this 16-year-old kid, almost a high school dropout, a college dropout, which I am. Look at this kid and what he gets to do in this book. I go to the president's press conferences. I get to witness these terrible, terrible things happening in our country, not just in the Deep South. Jim Crow in my native city, the capital of the United States, in Bethesda, Maryland, 2 miles from where I live. The movie theater, segregated. The bowling alley, segregated. The amusement park, segregated. Not in the mid-'50s at the time of Brown.
The early 60s, yeah.
In the early 60s. So what we have, and look at the civil rights movement that delivered this country to decency. Where is that today? Where is this meritocracy we have had for 20, 25 years? Millions of kids in this country who wanted what I was able to do, what you were able to do, to have the same kind of opportunity that we had. They've been living in their basements before the pandemic for years with their parents because they're saddled with student debt. You ever hear of student debt? And it's not about nostalgia. We didn't have student debt in this country. Who could imagine a concept 40 years ago of student debt?
Yeah, coming out and being 200 grand in the hole.
So the merit, we have a plutocracy in this country today. Plutocracy even greater than at the time of the Gilded Age. Millionaires many times over, multi-millionaires and billionaires, tens of thousands of them. Their influence and power totally, and this is not about right and left. They're on the left and they're on the
absolutely,
right.
Absolutely.
This class, we're beginning to have a class system in this country that, unlike Europe, never had a class system, and particularly in the post-war era. We have one class, the super rich, whose influence and power controls most of our institutions or is disproportionate in our institutions in a way we've never had. So the democracy is failing. It's not just failing because of Donald Trump. It's failing in all these other ways and has been for a good while. And so what can be done? What can be done? I think we have to keep presenting the facts. I mean, one of the really crazy aspects of this are the Trumpist attitude toward, and back to your point about the demographics, toward Latinos and Hispanics and immigration. Look, this is a country of immigrants. For the first time in our history, we have a majority, perhaps, of the country against the concept of immigration.
Which is who we are, which is basically the foundation of this country.
We are, but also, we've had periods in our history. We've had terrible quotas on immigrants at various times. We've had anti-immigrant sentiment, but nothing like we have at the present. Well, let's look at Hispanics in Latin America. What is it that so many people in these surveys who voted for Trump aligned Congress people say that they want? They want stability. Religion. What's the most religious group of people in this country, probably?
Hispanics.
In terms of the demographic, Hispanics. What's the one? There are actually two groups of people, if you're going to group people like this, who have a stable family structure in this country: Hispanics and Asians. So there's something cockeyed about all of these beliefs that are being pushed out by the big lie, and by lies and lies and lies. And so what is it that's undermining us? It's untruth and an inability to get the truth out to the extent that people will be more open to the truth. I don't know what you can do. I went to basic training in the Army. I'm not proud of my service because I tried to do it in such a way that I would avoid being drafted and have to go to Vietnam. But nonetheless, I went to basic and I learned something really important about what happens when people of every different kind of background get together, forced into an environment when they've got to pull for the same objectives, help each other, live together, even though their communities have in the past been antagonistic toward one another, embrace each other, help each other. Everybody who has ever been in the military service in the United States, I believe, knows this. We need national service. We need compulsory national service for our young people. That's the one thing. You don't have to go into the military. You can be a forester. You can work in a hospital. Doesn't matter. You can teach. Yeah. But 1 year of compulsory, and there is a real movement by a lot of ex-generals, actually, to do this in the United States. Would the Congress of the United States ever pass it? No, not at this point. That might have, over a long period of time, some real democratizing effect. But I don't know how this country is going to make the changes necessary to embrace democracy again. We do not embrace democracy today in our culture.
On that sober note, I want to thank Mr. Carl Bernstein. The book, which is already a New York Times bestseller, Chasing History, A Kid in the Newsroom. Carl Bernstein, still a kid at heart. I thank you for your time, my friend.
Donny, great to be with you again.
You stay safe, okay?
Be well.
Thank you, buddy. Hope you enjoyed our Brands of the Week and our interview with Carl Bernstein. We love having you on, Brand. Remember to rate, review, and subscribe anywhere you get podcasts, Spotify, Apple, anyplace else. So rate, review, and subscribe anywhere you get podcasts. And you can watch our videos on YouTube, and please subscribe there and tell us what you think. Leave your comments there, and don't forget to subscribe there also. It really helps the show. We'll see everybody next week on Brand. Stay safe. Everybody, thanks for watching. If you like it, hit that subscribe button. And we love having you here watching On Brand. And just don't miss any future episodes. So don't forget to hit that subscribe button. We'll see you next time.